Hey guys, it's Lucky Ghost, and today we're going to talk about how to become a good DPS. There's a lot of mistakes that new players make that make it very obvious to the veterans whenever they see a new player playing this game. There's just certain things that only a new player would do, mistakes that only a new player would make, and so I'm going to go through the biggest mistakes new DPS make when trying to learn how to get good at being a damage dealer. By the time you're done watching this video, you will have a much better idea of how you're supposed to play your role as a damage dealer, and whether or not you're putting out tons of damage, it's gonna look like you know what you're doing. All right, let's begin. The first thing we're going to go over is positioning. Positioning can be the easiest way to tell a new player from a veteran. New players are never in position. Positioning in Elder Scrolls Online is pretty unique. In other ways, it's a lot like you would expect it to be. So let's talk about that. The main thing to know about positioning in Elder Scrolls Online as a damage dealer is, let's assume the skeleton here is a boss that we are fighting against, and the robot up there is the tank. The tank is going to taunt the boss and face him away from the group. The damage dealer is going to stand right behind the boss and attack him from behind. The healer there, the one with the tail standing right behind my character, is going to always stand right behind the DPS. There are a lot of reasons why we stand in this formation in almost every fight in this game where we are allowed to do so. The only times we deviate from this is if the fight has mechanics that force us to deviate from this formation, because this is how you will achieve your optimal damage. One of the reasons for this setup is a skill called Combat Prayer, which the healer is going to slam their staff on the ground. It's going to heal everybody in a line in front of the healer. It's a straight rectangular ability. The healer's primary focus is to make sure the tank stays alive. So all of the heals the healer is casting are aimed at the tank, whether it's the rectangular combat prayer or the large circular AoE heals that they place on the floor. So as a damage dealer, it is your job to make sure you're standing in front of the healer within both of these heals. If you want to be healed, then you want to be in front of your healer. If you're standing over here and the healer's casting a combat prayer straight in front of them, they're healing the tank, but you're not getting healed by it, or you're not going to get the buffs that are going off, right? Because you're standing outside of the heals, you're not getting buffed, you're not getting resources back, and you're not getting healed, all because you're off to the side of the fight or you're over here. You're missing out on a lot of good stuff. Whether you realize it or not, that combat prayer is going to be constantly buffing your damage. For that reason, you're going to want to stand here and attack the boss from behind. Not only that, but you're going to have passives and champion point nodes that make you do more damage anytime you're behind the boss. It's called attacking the flank. And just like this here, that Hollow Fang globe going off, that's going to restore resources. If I'm not in that circle when it goes off because I'm off to the side, you know, shooting a bow at the boss, or if I'm behind the healer, even worse, I'm missing all of the buffs and all of the heals because I'm back here casting spells and shooting my bow. Now, this is the hardest thing for new players to adjust to. They think, hey, I'm using a bow, I'm a ranged character, I should be back here attacking the boss from range. No, this is exactly the #1 mistake new players make. It's how you always know a new player in a dungeon. They're standing in the back, blinking at the boss with a bow. They're behind the healer. None of the healer's heals are going to hit them back here. None of the buffs are going to hit them back here. And so they're not doing much damage because they're not getting buffed, and they're probably going to die if 1 or 2 ads starts attacking them back here, and the healer's focusing on keeping the tank alive. Not only that, but the healer is silently thinking to themselves, oh man, I've got another one. So make sure you come on up here, stand in front of your healer, help your healer out. They will love you for it. And by standing here, you're making your healer happy, your tank is happy, and you're doing more damage, and you're staying alive. It is so hard to die if you are between the tank and the healer and behind the boss. Okay, another place that you don't want to stand is right here in front of the boss. Bosses have a wicked cleave attack more often than not. They're going to attack the tank and they're going to do damage to anything that's near the tank. So if you're anywhere in this area in front of the boss is going to be doing lots of damage, lots of cleave attacks, and those attacks will hurt the tank and they'll kill you. So there's a lot of mobs and bosses that do a ton of cleave damage in front of them. So you never want to be standing in front of them. There's another buff that just went off and I didn't get any of that, right? Because I'm out of position. Not only that, the healer's going to throw orbs out, right? And these orbs are synergies that you can take. They're going to restore resources for you. And if you're standing here, the orb will go through you. You can grab it, and then it'll go through the tank, and the tank can grab it as well. That orb heals and it returns resources. It's very important that you're in position so you can take advantage of this. So as you can see, there are a ton of reasons to stand in front of your healer and in position at all times. Here's another buff. that we're standing in, and there goes another one. All of these things are constantly going off, and if you're all the way out here, you're not getting any of them. All right, and finally, if you get an ad on you, do not run it around the outside of the fight. Your tank can't get it, right? It's hard for the tank. They might have to leave position or kite the boss over so that they can reach it or chain it in and get within range. All the while, all the damage that you're casting is going to be over there, right? It's going to be all in that area. It's going to be right there. All the dots you're putting down, all of the dots your teammates are putting down, they're all in that area. So everything there is dying. Meanwhile, you're out here with one ad on you, and that ad is taking no damage because all your dots are right there, right? You're going to have multiple dots here. Your other DPS is going to have multiple dots here. So you want to pull the ad into here, let your tank grab it off of you, and then get into position behind the mobs that the tank is grabbing and just beat on them from here, okay? So those are the two most common mistakes we see new players make in this game. They end up behind the healer or in front of the boss or kiting an ad around the perimeter. You never want to do any of these things. If you're right here and one or two ads is attacking you, you're in front of your healer. There's going to be so much healing hitting you while your healer keeps your tank alive that you're never going to die. One or two ads is never going to kill you while you're standing right here. If one ad is able to kill you while you're standing right here, it's because it's an ad your tank should have taunted, right? It's an ad that has a shield or something that is capable of doing a heavy attack that can one-shot you. If you see a heavy attack like that coming in, or you're worried that it might be, eventually as an experienced player, you'll know which mobs can one-shot you with a heavy and which ones won't be able to. But until then, you can feel free to do a quick dodge roll if you see a heavy coming and then get back into position. If your tank sees you floundering because you've got a big ad on you, he or she should grab it off of you. At this point, you've done everything you're supposed to, and it's really up to the tank to help you out. But honestly, your healer shouldn't have any problem keeping you alive if you're in position. And the final bit of information that is kind of obvious, but just in case you didn't realize it, you don't want to stand in the red. There's a lot of forecasted abilities where the boss will project where they're going to do damage momentarily. And if that red appears underneath you, you're going to need to get out of it, either roll dodge or run out of it. It doesn't matter how you choose to get out of it, but you should get out of it. In normal, you can stand in the red and it's not really going to hurt all that bad a lot of the time. This is good for making you aware of the mechanic and that it exists. But if you're choosing to stand in it even though you know it's there, you're getting into a bad habit that is going to end up killing your character once you get to veteran. In veteran, the red is not a suggestion but a demand. You must get out of the red when you see it. If you're standing in the red and you die, that's your fault. There's nothing your healer could have done to save you, and even if they could, it's not really their responsibility to protect you from yourself. You should be helping them. You should be getting out of the red when you're able to. And as you become a more experienced player, a couple of things are going to happen. You're going to get champion points, which is going to make it so that you take less damage. We call these mitigation nodes. They're going to provide damage mitigation. As a result, you'll start to be able to stand in some reds or take more damage than you used to be able to. And with experience, you'll begin to learn which red you need to get out of, which red you can block while standing in, or which red needs to be roll dodged. There's a lot of different mechanics in this game. Each fight has its own set of best practices, but in general, until you know whether or not the red is going to kill you, play it safe and get out. All right, so to wrap up positioning, the way to blend in with the good players, the way to not be obviously completely brand new to the game is to stand like this. Stand in front of your healer, stand behind the mobs that your tank has taunted, whether it's the boss or a bunch of trash. You'll be getting healed, you'll be getting buffs, and they'll think you know what you're doing. And one day you will know what you're doing. Okay, the next item on the list that new players oftentimes don't realize is important is light attack weaving. We'll make this quick because it's a simple topic. Basically, you need to light attack between an ability. So we would light attack, ability, light attack, ability, light attack, ability. And there you have it. We are light attack weaving. It's very important to light attack weave. One, you can only cast abilities so fast. Even if I sit here and spam this ability, it's only going to let me cast it once every second. That is what we call the global cooldown. So one way to get extra damage in between those casts is to light attack. Right? This is free damage. We couldn't have done anything else in that time. There's a global cooldown between our abilities of 1 second. So what we can do is we can light attack and then do an ability. And then while we're waiting for the global cooldown, we get boom, there's another light attack that just did 5,000 damage unbuffed, right? That was a free 5,000 damage love tap on the boss right there while we were waiting for the global cooldown. There are a lot of very important reasons as to why we light attack weave. One, for the damage, right? That's obvious. It's free damage. It's a way to add a little bit more damage between each ability while you're waiting for the global cooldown to allow you to cast another ability. The next reason is because there are a lot of debuffs and dots that stack on the enemy per sets that we're wearing, such as popular sets like Relican, Sororia, Kinra, right? Every time we are attacking the enemy, we're stacking these debuffs. There you can see the tornado and it's ticking. And if I do another one, we just added another stack and it's an 18, 19 per tick. Another one, now look how much damage each tick is doing. Another one, it's going up more. Another one, our Kinras just went off now, right? And now our attacks are doing even more. 3,000 a tick, right? 3,200, 3,600, 4,000 per tick, just constantly going off. We're now at the maximum of 10 stacks, 4,000 a tick, right? And that's just passive damage that's always happening, whether or not I do anything. If I stop attacking, it's still going off, right? These are stacks that I put on the boss. So sets like this only work if I was casting abilities. These stacks wouldn't be on the boss. This damage wouldn't be happening. Very important that you light attack weave. If you go more than 5 seconds without attacking the boss with a light attack, you drop all of your stacks of Relican or Sororia, whatever sets you're wearing, and you go back down to the base level of that, level 1 stack, which is now only doing 366 damage, right? We were doing 4,000 a tick. That's a huge difference. It's a huge DPS loss if you drop your stacks. Very important to make sure you light attack between each ability. Get those stacks up. This is going to ramp up your damage significantly. The final reason to light attack between abilities is it's going to cause ult regen. If we use our ultimate right now, there, our ult is at 0. You can see it down here. It says 0 ultimate charge. If I use an ability, it still says 0. If I use another ability, it still says 0. If I light attack, it starts counting up. It will count up 3 ultimate charge per second for 9 seconds for a total of 27 ult charge for 1 light attack. So if you want to be able to cast your ult often, and by the way, you definitely do, you're going to want to light attack to get that ult regen going at all times. Now you may have noticed that you're barely able to see my light attacks at the end here, right? What I'm doing is what is known as light attack animation canceling or animation canceling. I'm casting my light attack. This is the light attack animation. And then I'm casting an ability. The ability is canceling the light attack animation. It basically overrides it because you can't have both animations happening at once, but you can have both sources of damage happening almost simultaneously. What's really happening is the light attack is happening a split second before the Venom Skull, but I'm pressing both almost simultaneously. I'm pressing the light attack and then the Venom Skull, but basically at the same time. So it looks like this. And we're skipping this long light attack animation where he swings the sword and then puts his foot out and then sticks his foot back in, right? It's a rather long, lengthy animation, and we're just skipping that by doing this. And now you barely see the light attack, but it's happening. It's registering each time, right? This is one of the most intimidating mechanics in the game for new players because they feel like there must be something really complicated to doing this, but really all you're doing is pressing light attack and then the ability. You're just pressing them in rapid succession, light attack ability. It's one of the simplest things, but also one of the most important things in the game. Get in the habit of doing that and you will be well on your way to doing much better damage as a player. Okay, so to quickly recap, you need to be light attack weaving to 1, to add extra damage between your attacks, to 2, stack those procs, right? Get those stacks on, your stacks of Relican, your stacks of Kinra, your stacks of Sororia. If you're wearing it, it's going to be incredibly beneficial to get those stacks up and have them helping you put damage out and increase your damage. And then finally, to get that ult charge so that you can cast your ult more often to further increase your damage output. And that is why we light attack between every ability. Okay, the next tip is another one that will greatly improve your damage. And this one is probably the single largest reason for new players not feeling like they're doing very much damage. Once you're 160 and you've got all your gear, from this point on, it's going to largely be up to you mastering your rotation to improve your damage output. You'll very quickly find that, hey, I went and I collected the required gear. I've got it all to be purple or gold, but I still don't feel like I'm doing any damage. In fact, my parse is telling me I'm not doing very much damage. Well, assuming that you're following a good build that's meant for more than overland content, if your damage is low, it's going to be because you're not keeping up your dots. Every build in this game that puts out a lot of damage is going to have a lot of dots associated with it. You might have as many as 7 dots or as few as 1 or 2. The important thing is, however many dots your build has, you need to make sure that as soon as that dot falls off, you're reapplying it. Every second that one of your dots is not ticking on the enemy, that's a massive DPS loss for your output. And this is the most common mistake I see new players make. They're going through their rotation, and at any given moment, they're going to have multiple dots not ticking. Or they'll look down and realize that 2 or 3 or 4 of them aren't ticking, and then they'll rapidly try to catch up and reapply them. That moment right there is why your damage output is so low. If you ever look down and see that you have 2 or 3 dots that aren't ticking that should be, that's largely responsible for your low parse or damage output. So watch those dots, make sure that you keep your minor force up at all times, make sure you're keeping the dots up, the damage over time abilities. In other words, if you don't know what dot means, it just means a damage over time ability, an ability that will do X amount of damage per second for Y number of seconds. Once you get in the habit of light attack weaving and keeping up your dots, your damage is going to skyrocket, okay? And that about sums it up for dots. That's really the only thing I wanted to touch on, and it's the most common thing for new players to struggle with, is keeping all of their dots up. They should all be ticking all the time. Don't reapply them too early, because then you're going to find you're running out of resources very often. So you want to wait until it falls off and then reapply it, but not before, right? That's going to be very important for your sustain, that you let the dot tick its full duration, but it's going to be very bad for your damage if you let it fall off and you don't reapply it quick enough. Okay, the next very important thing that new players often overlook is the value in passives. Unlocking the abilities in your build is important. Yes, those are going to be the tool that you use to do damage. However, that tool won't do very much damage unless you've got all of the relevant passives unlocked. These are all going to greatly enhance the damage that your abilities put out, whether it's your class passives, whether it's your weapon passives. ESO's damage is made up through a ton of passives. No one thing is going to make your character a god. It is the sum of all of the things. It is all of these little tiny passives that are all incrementally increasing your damage, and once you've layered on passive after passive, you'll see your character start to do big things. So make sure you run around and get the skill points you need and unlock the passives you're going to use to really ramp up your damage. Don't overlook these. They're very important for a damage dealer, and for every class for that matter. Next, let's talk about abilities. Not all abilities are created equal, and maybe a more accurate way to say this is every ability has a use, but not every ability is good for your build. Some abilities need to be spec'd into in order to do good damage. You may be spec'd into doing damage with stamina abilities, and if you try to use certain magic abilities, they just won't hit very hard. Or if you're spec'd into AoE damage and you try to do single target damage, your single target damage isn't going to hit as hard. So when choosing a build, keep these kinds of things in mind. And then also when modifying a build that you decide to follow, keep these things in mind. Consider how the gear you're wearing is affecting the build and whether or not it will positively impact a skill that you're deciding to replace with another ability. So to sum it up, while a lot of skills in this game are good, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be good for your build. So when you get serious about trying to enter veteran content, definitely consider looking at a build guide and at least use that as a foundation and try to understand why it chose the skills, the passives, and the gear that it did, and maybe modify it slightly to make it your own until you truly understand how to make a build in Elder Scrolls Online. Okay, the next mistake that new players make, and almost every new player makes. When I say new players, even I made this mistake as a new player. I went a very long time without using consumables. In Elder Scrolls Online, consumables are a massive part of how much damage you put out. Food is incredibly important to make sure you're not running out of stamina or magicka. If you find yourself constantly running out of stamina or magicka, you're probably not wearing food, or maybe not wearing the right food. You should be running sustained food, especially as a low-level character. What that means is you should be running food that either gives you stamina back if you're a stamina toon, or magicka back if you're a magicka toon. This is going to greatly increase the amount of skills you can cast before you run out. If you have no resources left in battle, you're basically doing no damage. Make sure you're eating food. The other half of this equation is potions, right? You should be making sure that you're using potions. It can be these cheap Essence of Stamina potions. These sell at guild traders for like 8 or 9 gold a piece, or you could use the more expensive stuff, Essence of Weapon Power or Essence of Spell Power, when you're doing something very difficult in veteran content, for example. Or maybe you're trying to finally beat veteran Maelstrom Arena or veteran Vatashran Hollows, and you need every ounce of help you can get to really increase your odds of successfully beating that content. Well, that's when you pull out these more expensive ones, but these things are very much worth it. The first line there, increasing increasing our weapon damage by 20%, increasing our critical rating, and giving us sustain. You can't overstate how useful these good potions are in this game. They significantly buff the amount of damage that your character is able to do, and you should be using them on cooldown. In other words, you use it, and then the second the cooldown is over, you use it again. That's going to ensure that you always have these buffs and that you always have that 30% increased stamina recovery as well. Or if it's a mag tune, 30% increased mag recovery. Now, I already know what you're thinking if you're a new player. Oh man, food, potions, those are expensive. I don't want to deal with those. I hardly have any money. I understand. I thought the same thing when I was a new player, but guess what? I'm going to quickly show you how to buy potions and food. It's really not difficult at all. It's very, very simple. And one of the main reasons new players don't do it, besides thinking that it's going to cost too much gold, I'll cover that in a second. But first, let's talk about how you buy it. Okay. First, you look for this symbol right here, right? It's a scale with a little banner behind it. The banner indicates, that it's a guild trader, in other words. So scale, a trader, banner, guild, it's a guild trader. Okay. So we look, and these are located all over. There's one here, there's one here. In some towns, you'll see the symbol once, and then there will be a pack of them standing in like a circle or in a general area. You can go talk to any one of them, but they're located throughout all of the game. So if we were in Deshawn, for instance, we look at Deshawn, we look at Mournhold, main town, and there it is, the symbol right there again, right? The same thing, the scales with the banner. This indicates that this area here is where you're going to find the guild traders. Just look for that symbol in a major town, and that's where the guild traders will be. Now, don't confuse that with this right here, this scale. It doesn't have the banner behind it. These are NPC traders. Banner behind it, these are guild traders. Okay. Now we come to this person right here, this guild trader. We interact with it. It's very easy, right? So say we wanted to buy some potions, just our basic stamina potions, and you just search. What you do is you type essence of stamina. Now start typing the name, and then as soon as it fills, click it. This is going to ensure that it's spelled right and it knows exactly what to search for. Press R or press search, start search, and it's going to show you all of the listings available. Here we have 100 of them for sale for 6 gold a piece. Perfect. So we could have 100 of these for 600 gold, right? It takes us what, 10 minutes to find 600 gold, if that, and we've got enough potions to last us hours. Okay. So that expense is covered for hours, and so are the potions. And it's going to take us 10 minutes to pay this back. The next thing that you might want to look for is your lava foot soup and Soltrice. Now, all you have to do if you're a stamina tune is go lava foot. Okay. You start typing it, and then it comes up, and then we'd search for it. Now, this guild trader doesn't have it. That's okay. But this is what it would look like. If you get this response, it means either you typed it in wrong and it just couldn't find anything, or you typed it in right and the guild trader just doesn't happen to have any for sale. So what you would do is go to other guild traders, maybe try this one, maybe try this one, or switch towns and try that one and look for the item you're looking for until you find it. Now, what we know is that Lavafoot Soup is selling around 140 to 176 gold because we have an add-on that tells us this. On console, you're just going to have to kind of get a feel for what things sell for on console. You don't have add-ons to tell you this information. We have Tamriel Trade Center on PC that kind of gives us a general idea of what things cost. It's not always 100% accurate, but it's close enough where you can make purchases confidently. Now, without the buffs that will increase the duration of this food, it's going to last 2 hours. It's going to cost us 140 gold. 140 gold takes what? Let's look at some items that we found when we killed a few mobs earlier. This rubidite leather helmet, right? That's 47 gold, almost 50 gold, right? And the food for 2 hours would only cost 3 times that. What else did we find while we were killing a few trash mobs earlier? We found a battle axe, a rubidite sword, a ruby bow, frostbite, 78, 50. So in just a few minutes, this silk stuff right here, 50, 28, 22, this stuff, you could sell it just maybe 10 minutes of gameplay, right? Again, and at most 10 minutes. I mean, that's such a generous guess. It's probably going to take a couple minutes, right? You open one chest, kill a few mobs. You've already paid for the next hour or 2 of potions and food, and everything you make on top of this is profit. So what I'm saying here is don't be afraid to buy food. This food is not that expensive. It's 100% worth it. You're just killing stuff slower. You're running around without stamina. You're holding your group back in group content, all to save like what is essentially 2 minutes worth of drops. Don't. Just get the potions if you need the potions. Just buy the food if you need the food. And I just showed you how to do both. You just come up to a guild trader. I showed you where they're at. You click on this. You type the name of the item you want. Click. Search, it comes up, and then you just double click to buy. That's it. Now you've got potions. Same thing for food. It's not scary. Don't be intimidated by this process. Do be aware of the price that is listed. Prices vary greatly. Sometimes people will try to charge way more than an item is worth. So protect yourself. Look at how much each one's going for. Make sure you're not overpaying for something that shouldn't cost you a lot of money. All right. And as for the last and perhaps the biggest mistake new damage dealers can make is not subbing to Lucky Ghost on YouTube. Be sure to hit that sub button. Be sure to like the video if you found this helpful and useful. And if you ever want to hang out with someone else that loves ESO, be sure to swing by my stream at twitch.tv/luckyghost. If you're looking for build guides, answers to any of your questions, I'm happy to help you there. I'm live 5 days a week, so swing on by and ask away. If you have any questions here, don't hesitate to comment. And if you're one of the people that's really enjoying this content and you want to help me out, consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel. To become a member, just click the join button down here on any video and it'll bring up the various membership options for you. If you do decide to take a look at this, thanks for even considering. It means more than you know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.